Hello world, I'm here with Tejas Menon, podcaster extraordinaire, singer, songwriter, composer exceptionale. I'm not sure if that's really a word in any language. And all-around media mogul, Tejas Menon. Welcome to the program. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Arnab, thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, man, it's going to be a lot.
Yes.
I anticipate fun times to be had.
Of course, yeah. I expect nothing less. No.
Yeah. Now it's going to be a total disappointment going forward. It's going to be silence, and I don't know what to talk about. I don't know what to say. But I want to. I'm sure there's lots of stuff I can think of. I want to introduce people to your story. For those of my friends and who don't maybe know who you are.
There's a lot of those going around.
Yeah, of course. There's always new.
There's a lot of people.
Yeah, there's always new fans to be had, and you've got your hands in several pies.
I have fingers.
You have multiple.
Others are two pies or no?
No, I think we can think of some more pies. I'm sure. But
I only have two hands, but but yeah,
we're only consuming two pies at a time.
Yeah, that seems enough at once. But thank you for the introduction. It makes me sound a lot cooler than I probably am, and mostly am. And but I do think I do all of the things, even if the adjectives describing those those different things that I do are exaggerative. But
it's all true, and if anything, it's an understatement.
Thanks, man.
But that's actually serious, because I was talking to Jishnu the other day. We were doing a podcast similar to this, and we because he's involved in GeekFruit with you, we were talking about that, and sort of we spoke about the origin of GeekFruit from his point of view,
right?
And it's hard not to talk about everything you guys have done without really taking note of how far it's come and how much of a success it is and how much of a pioneering thing it is. Because like me, not being directly involved in the world of geekdom, I'm certainly a nerd. I enjoy my nerdy topics.
You're definitely a nerd. Yes, you're a bona fide fucking nerd. Yeah, I love it.
But my general apprehensiveness regarding Star Wars alone may disqualify me from the geek world.
No, I think it's fine.
Okay, that's a huge thing to say. Honestly, that if you're saying that that's okay,
I think it's okay, because I mean, a lot of people get. I think people get apprehensive about Star Wars because of how, and pardon the pun, forceful. The fandom is, it's just like, I mean, you want to say that a lot of, like, Star Wars may be like the progenitor of many fandoms, like the way people, fan about Star Wars is kind of like the blueprint for how many fandoms have kind of ordered themselves. So
that's quite an astute observation.
Yeah, man, because they really did start a whole I'm sorry, I'm not going to make this thing about Star Wars, because podcast I'm on,
Jishnu schooled me on the Marvel universe and Captain America.
Oh,
so
nice,
you can actually we can go there. I'm willing to be.
I'm not gonna bore you with the lore of Star Wars, but I will say that the stuff outside Star Wars is probably far more interesting to you and others than everything else, right?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna quickly summarize it by saying what I don't like to do is to make people feel like shit for not watching Star Wars, right? Like I hate doing that. I may have done it myself, like inadvertently or maybe advertently, if that's a word, and I feel bad about it, but like I think the thing that people hate about Star Wars fans is that thing, right? Like, where they'd be like, "Oh my God, how can you have not watched Star Wars?" Now, here's the thing I don't like. Yeah. I don't like it when people go like, "Oh man, fuck Star Wars, I'm never gonna, I don't need to watch," or like put out that thing about like, "Yeah, I've not seen Star Wars." It's, like, or put it out there proudly saying, "Oh yeah, because people are doing a thing, I'm not going to do it." I think that's kind of silly sometimes, because, it's like The Godfather is not my favorite movie. It's a great movie, but I have watched it because I know how important it is in the business that I am in, or at least, like if you're into audio or video or have done anything, you don't have to love Star Wars, but you have to acknowledge like the kind of effect it had on an industrial level. Because of Star Wars, we have HD digital cinema, we have digital cameras, we have VFX, ILM, Skywalker sound. These guys, to make Star Wars, they invented a lot of industry. So that's kind of like really the things you have to kind of appreciate about George Lucas and his team and stuff like that. So for those reasons, I feel like it's important to kind of just acknowledge Star Wars being what it is. Maybe not the story or Darth Vader or whatever. I mean, of course, its effect on pop culture it cannot be ignored. But like the real interesting things about it are definitely the leaps and bounds they had to make on an industrial level to make Star Wars. So I think that's probably why people should watch it. Anyway, but that's just my small spiel.
No, that's actually really interesting, and I never thought of that before. So I feel inclined to explain myself. Because my reasons for not, are you familiar with why I kind of don't?
I think we've had this conversation a couple of times, but go ahead.
I'll just explain myself for everybody out there. Sure. I respect Star Wars.
That's all. That's it.
I respect the influence it's had on pop culture. And everything you've just said just now about how it's even affected technology, and that stuff is really fascinating. And I'm happy to even hear about that, and interested even to hear about that. So my reasons for refusing to watch Star Wars, I'm not going to say like it's stupid. It's just as stupid as any other reason to not watch Star Wars. But originally, I mean, somehow I had made it to adulthood without ever watching a Star Wars movie, and then growing up in Canada, being of Indian origin, I felt like, okay, I'm a minority because I'm of Indian origin, and I'm also a minority because I haven't ever seen a Star Wars movie. I had never encountered like very many people who had never, even by accident, just seen a Star Wars movie, and people would be shocked. So I kind of held onto it just for that reason.
Right.
But
I get it.
But then as I started going through life, and it's again like it's not really. I still haven't seen a Star Wars movie, and now it's sort of like my refusal to watch a Star Wars movie is kind of like my outlet for irrationality. You know what I mean?
Fair enough. I know, and that's totally acceptable. And you've never been disrespectful to Star Wars. In fact, you have even shown up to one of our Star Wars events.
I was going to say,
which
that was funny.
I find so funny and amazing and just very brave overall of you. Yeah.
I was hanging out with your girlfriend. We were taking a break from recording her album. So we were like, Tejas and the guys are recording a podcast. Let's go
seeing
hang out.
The two of you there was definitely a joy.
I had fun. You guys asked me you picked on me for a question.
We had to. It's a time-honored tradition for nerds to get back at people.
No, it was funny. It was hilarious.
Well, and not just you in particular, but this whole thing about how nerds won. We won the day in the end. And when you put it in a very holistic sense, nerds won because just think of the things that I'm using the word nerd very loosely, but just like dataism or whatever it is, to be a geek and and operate the world right now is you kind of need nerds more than ever. And,
absolutely.
And just the idea that these are the kinds of things that at least I remember nobody had the time for or would listen to me. And there's a huge gulf between data and Star Wars, but the things that I used to talk about a nerd out in school where I would tell people about, these are the kyber crystals and this is what charges the lightsaber and blah, blah, blah. And people would be like, oh, what the fuck are you talking about?
That is something I can relate to. That's something. I mean, I'm always talking about stupid things. Look, not stupid things, I guess, but like esoteric things. And people just like, why are you talking? I don't care about this. And I'm like, man, you need to understand. I just read this surveillance
this entire
capitalism.
dictionary. I know. I don't know, man. I think, and for me, I mean, and if I may turn this into a segue, but for me, it was like you were talking about how you were growing up and being this brown guy in a different country of your origin. That was essentially my kind of that was my childhood. But I mean, obviously, it was a little different because I was still insulated, obviously, by my family and my friends. I went to an Indian school. I didn't go to an international school.
You for the listeners out there, you
yes.
you grew up in Dubai, right?
Yes, I grew up in Dubai. I didn't grow up in India at all. And well, I mean, if you count growing up past the age of 18, then yes, I did. But I do. But but the entirety of my childhood as a minor or whatever was spent in Dubai. My father actually went to, like, 1973 was they instated it as a united, like, as a country. Before that was just, it was separated kingdoms, and then, one guy tried to unite all of them and say, hey, if we have, like, this entire state, that we could govern ourselves and we could be more powerful, blah, blah, blah. So he spent, like, Sheikh Zayed, he spent, like, about, I don't know, like, the better part of his life trying to unite different kingdoms. And finally, when he got the 7 of them together, that was 1973, my father went to the UAE in 1977. So it's like 4 years after it was instated, he was just like, all right, it's a country, let's go. I don't know what it is. Yeah, I don't know what it was about so many, and typically from where I'm from, which is Kerala, a lot of, like, people from Kerala immigrated to United Arab Emirates.
That's actually an interesting fact, isn't it? Like, I mean, there's certainly a lot of people from the Indian diaspora in Dubai, but, like,
in the Middle East generally, yeah, and
specifically Kerala.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure why that is as such. I think there may have been just an opportunity which then kind of led to this whole influx. But I think, I remember in the beginning they definitely they wanted, I remember they needed well, obviously cheap labor is something that we are well known for. We have, like, a lot of human capital. So I think the ever-present idea, even till today, is better exchange rates, send back money, to your homes in India. So primarily the breadwinner of every family would kind of go to Dubai, and then their families would still be in their native country or whatever, their hometown or whatever, and they would send money back. But my dad was just like, yo, I'm going to live in Dubai. And he was quite young then, so he was just like, okay, cool. And then he got married. And then, of course, my mom also joined him there after a while. And then my brother was born and I was born. So, and then we were just like, all right, we're here now. And my dad, at that point, he was doing well.
Were you born there also?
I was not. I was born in India. I think, I don't know. I think it was just like my child has to be born in India kind of vibe. Right. Plus also I think my mother also just wanted the support of her family. So I don't know how this happened, honestly, or not, but, like, both my parents obviously from Kerala. So I'm technically 100% from Kerala, but neither of them kind of grew up in Kerala either. So they all grew up all over India.
I've never asked you this, but how's your Malayali?
Malayalam is terrible. The only person I could, not even converse with, the only person I understood was my grandmother before she passed away. So even my mother even my parents did not speak to me in Malayalam when I was growing up. And which is strange because a lot of my other Malu friends in Dubai, and as you know, there are a lot of them. So they would speak to they would retain that, that heritage and that mother tongue and, and everything. And they would speak to their kids in Malayalam. But for some reason, my parents were just like, no, you're going to speak in English. And I was like, all right, cool. And that's, that kind of has changed the course of my life in some ways. So yeah, and all the friends that I made, my best friends from Dubai, the 4 of them, none of them, and I find it very interesting because we're all from very, very different places. Like my 4 best friends, even till today, one of them is Ali Khan, so he's from Delhi. There's Romit Sen, who's from from West Bengal. He's from Calcutta. There's Anish Malpani, who's Marwadi, so he's kind of he lived in Maharashtra, but he's, from the north, and Harendra Kapoor. So it's like all of them are from, like, the various different parts of and only, I think, obviously all of us speak Hindi, but none of them speak their native language, except for Romit Sen, who speaks Bengali, because I think...
there you go. Yeah. My mother insisted on only speaking to me in Bengali since I was basically born. So Bengali is still my first language, even though I was born in Newfoundland. So basically my mother's approach was like, I'm going to speak to him in Bengali, and then when we throw him in school, he's just gonna learn English. And,
That's so good, though.
Yeah,
I mean,
I benefited from that a lot. I mean, the reason
I
that
do regret not knowing Malayalam, but yeah, that's such a good point.
What you're describing about the diaspora, in Dubai, at least in terms of your experience, is pretty similar to what I experienced in St. John's, just to the extent that, like, over here when we were in India, we're from all these different disparate communities, and that becomes quite salient. Depending on where you are, like whether you're Bengali or Tamil or from UP or whatever it is, right? Gujarati. But in Newfoundland, in the Indian community in St. John's, all of the Indians from all over sort of coalesced into a singular community. I mean, it's sort of along religious lines ish, but even outside of that, we had this thing, I guess it still exists, called the Friends of India, and so then even outside of the Hindu temple, you'd have the other Indians from other. So that's interesting, and that's quite different than. I mean, I don't know how different, but it's different than the experience that I observed in Toronto. I can't say that because when I moved to Toronto, I wasn't hanging out with the Indian diaspora necessarily, but what I did notice was that I had Goan friends that would just all hang out together, and then you had there's like a specific place where the Bengalis congregate, and
there would be like a subset of that,
and that's because Toronto is it's filled with so many different types of people. Whereas in St. John's, like when I was growing up, all the Indians basically knew each other. Like it was like the Indian community was bigger than you would expect for a place like St. John's, Newfoundland. However, it was still small enough such that everyone kind of knew each other, and I'm not sure if it's still that way. I mean, I haven't lived there since I was 25, so it's over 10 years. But it's interesting stuff.
Did you ever have this? Thing? And if I can maybe elicit an example that kind of exactly fits with this whole thing about hanging with your people from India, and then obviously that subset of people. I mean, I don't know if this is relevant, but like I remember this one thing very, very clearly. Like I remember thinking about it a lot when I finally did end up moving to India, which is a little bit later on. But when I was a kid, I would always go, I'd come back home from school, and this is obviously when I was slightly younger, in 5th or 6th grade, and blah, blah, blah. And I would go, and my parents would say, my mom mostly would say, okay, what did you do in school? And I'd say, oh, yeah, I got this new friend, and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, oh, what's his name? And even if I would tell my dad this, and usually I'd have to tell my dad because it involved some kind of excursion of some sort, where I would be like, oh, I'm going to the mall with Anish, and he's like, oh, who's Anish? And he's like, oh, he's my friend. No, what's his name? And I was like, Anish, and he's like, no, what's his full name?
Oh, right.
And I would go like, I would never understand why that is important.
They needed to know the full name, you mean?
Of course, yeah, the full name. And then until I moved to India, and I mean, it's weird, but even I do that now. It's just like, oh, what's his name? And
you want to know the background. What's the background?
Because you need to be able to attribute it to some geographical location for some reason. I don't know why, because it comes with its own things. I don't know. It's got its own baggage, and it's kind of like weirdly not right in some ways.
Yeah, it's very awkward. I mean, I didn't experience that in St. John's, but I experienced it I experienced something like that in a very in a different kind of way when I would we would come back to India on a very regular basis. Usually, it was just me and my mom would come back. And like the funny thing, so in St. John's, there would never be a situation where I would have almost never be a situation where I would have a friend of Indian origin that my parents didn't know their family. So that it was just not a question. And also, I wouldn't really hang out so much with other Indian kids. I was quite a visible sort of freak in that community. I'm of my sort of generation, like in and around my generation, a few years older, a few years younger. I think I'm like one of only 2 or 3 people that didn't go to medical school, and I'm certainly the only one that followed this ridiculous path that I'm on. And I was also I was like, there were a lot of other kids that were up to like sketchy shit, but I was the one that was just visibly up to sketchy shit. Like I dressed really weird. I had like I bleached my hair weird colors.
Wow.
I was boisterous, and my style of dress was very outlandish, especially when I was in high school. And so all the other parents in the Indian community would very much just be like, okay, like don't talk to him, or he, you know, like that was palpable. And then even like you
were those kids that parents said not to hang out.
Oh, 100%. Even though like there were other kids that were doing far worse types of things than I was doing. But I was I was just like the visible, like, wow, like what is wrong with Bonnie's son? Like that, that type of thing. And
the
so,
iconography, I think, of you,
Well, it got even crazier, like, because I did my undergraduate degree in my hometown at Memorial University. And so, like, the typical thing that would happen was, like, you do your undergraduate degree in whatever subject is going to make it most probable for you to get into med school. And so by the time we were, like, I had, started off, I was thinking about majoring in music, and I have uncles in the community saying, no, that's not going to be your only degree, is it? That kind of stuff. But so then eventually I switched to math, not because I had anything to prove, but because I just found math really interesting. And I that was like a respectable thing. People were like, oh, wow, mathematics, cool. And so by the time we we were rolling around to the end of our undergraduate degrees, and everybody else was like studying for their MCATs and applying for medical school. Like there was like this palpable, like, when I was basically like, well, I don't think I'm going to go to medical school. I don't even think I'm going to do my master's right away. I was considering doing a master's in something, but I was going to be like, I was definitely going to be taking a break for a year.
I mean, you already knew that you were never going to do med, right? Like pre-med or whatever.
Medical was definitely out of the question. But I definitely considered things like an MBA. I definitely considered... An MBA is laughable at this point because I think it's like a joke of a degree. But I don't care if anybody out there is offended by it. It's a joke of a degree. But I was considering doing my master's in mathematics. I was considering doing lots of things. But I knew for a fact that I wanted to take a break. And just the fact that I was not even considering... that I was taking a break, that I was not going to go ahead and do my master's right away. So this led to a situation where I would show up at, say, some function at the temple, or whatever, and you'd have uncles talking to the other sort of, like my friends. They're like, oh, what medical school are you going to? Right on, wow, this is amazing. And then they'd like look at me directly and just not talk to me and ignore me.
I have such a similar story. I have the exact same thing. I mean, well, not exactly the same thing, but I remember this time when I was I was in 12th grade, and post 10th grade, I was just not killing it at school anymore. Mm-hmm. I thought I was a pretty decent student until 10th grade. And, but it was around then, actually just from 8th grade onwards, I started obviously getting more interested in music and literature and reading a lot more and things like that. And I remember in 12th grade, and I was really, really poor at school. I was failing like chemistry and things like that. And my school, which I went to in Dubai, which now has been rebranded as this even more uppity kind of, really, really, elite kind of Indian school, which, I mean, all credit due, they did hand us a lot of opportunities, which I still find so unique. When we were in school, they let us, make our school documentary and things like that, and operate cameras and things like that. It's probably where my fascination for it started. But the interesting thing was that, our school was just full of like overachieving kids and families. Every family, pretty much had a kid who was just like a super nerd. And if you weren't a nerd, you were just like, okay, what's wrong with you? Like, what's happening? Everyone should be like getting 90 plus in your ISE exams or whatever it is. And I was just not that, was not having that. Mm-hmm. So I remember we were being picked up from some place and a friend's dad was picking all of us up, like some of our friends, and we were headed, and he was like, oh, cool, yeah, I see you guys. I'll drop you home. Do you guys need a lift? I can drop you to here. And I was like, yeah, cool. And I lived in Sharjah anyway, so I always was, traveling the biggest lengths in Dubai. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll get in. And I was with a couple of my friends and the friend's dad, the one whose dad was dropping us. And I remember this really bad conversation. I was like, oh, here it comes. Where he was just like, oh, so boys, what do you guys, what's your plan for post 12th grade? And it was a very like, leading question saying basically, which universities have you guys applied to?
Yeah, basically I'm judging you.
Yeah, exactly. And it was, you know, I don't blame him. He's an Indian parent anyway. And so, yeah, obviously my friends were like, yeah, you know, uncle, I'm going to, you know, Rice University, da, da, da. And I was just like, oh, shit. And he's like, oh, Rice, very good university. Yeah, is that Ivy League? And I was like, okay, cool. And then, you know, one of other friends was like, yeah, University of Austin, Texas. Or somebody's like UFT. All these, like, amazing places. I don't know how big this car was, how many kids are in it. And finally, he was just like, oh, Tejas, what are you doing? And I was definitely sure. And and this is an aside, but my parents were going through an insane financial crisis. This was post-bird flu, and my dad lost a lot of money. So I was not even, and my brother and I have led very, very different lives. I have an older brother by about 6 years. So he spent like 10 years in the States, and he studied, and he did all of that. So my plan growing up was like, my idea was that, okay, cool, I'm going to go to the States because everybody in my school did that, or everybody went abroad and, you know, and studied, and I was going to do the same, and until I realized, that ain't happening for me. So anyway, I was kind of like more into music, and I was getting into that. And I want
to just, sorry to interrupt you. I want to put a pin in that. Because you just a second ago, hold the thought. Just a second ago, you said like, oh, I'm going to go to the States, but then like eventually I realized that that's like, obviously that's not what I'm going to do. I want to get back to exploring how and why that's so obvious after you finish saying what you're saying.
I mean, for me, it seemed pretty plain and simple. But anyway, so when he finally came to me, he was just like, he was like, so Tejas, what about you? And all my friends obviously knew that, you know, this is the situation. And I was just like, you know, I think I'm going to write for a bit. Is what I told him. I think I'm going to be a writer for some time. And I want to write for some time and then decide what I want to do next. Which to me, even till today, I look back at that answer and I was like, oh, that's pretty mature.
It's a good answer, very mature.
Yeah, it's a great, good answer. I mean, it seemed ridiculous to even say that at the time, but now when I look back, it kind of did. That's exactly what I did. I ended up writing, and a few of those songs which I ended up writing, and the texts and you know, ideas that I started like dabbling in are very formative. It ended up becoming quite formative for me, and you know, have definitely influenced my career and things like that. So I mean, I did do that, but it seemed like such a ludicrous idea that there was this awkward silence in the car after, and there was no more questions about, you know, future talk or whatever it is. And it was just like, it was just awkward. It was just like
for Indian parents, sometimes, diaspora Indian parents at least, sometimes even respectable things are not respectable. It's like, I'm thinking about majoring in history. It's like, no, you don't want to do that.
Yeah, you don't study an avocation, you know, like it's mostly like a vocational thing that you have to go and study something that will lead to a job, as opposed to studying like art, which I eventually did later on, which I'm super grateful for. But yeah, a lot of people are interested in studying things that will directly lead them to a job, as opposed to open their mind to what could help them in a job, as opposed to the actual job.
And then the 2008 financial crisis happens, and that whole thing gets derailed.
Yep. So that's a quick thing on school and
okay,
what I was
doing
back then. Yeah.
So there was a point where you just like kind of assumed you were going to be going to the States. And is there an interesting kind of transitional moment where you're like, okay, so maybe I don't want to just go down that path? Like, what was that? What is that about?
Well, there were a number of issues. I mean, obviously there was the main issue, which is that we just didn't have the money, and how I gleaned that information, because my father, I'd say like most Indian parents, is very, you know, secretive, kind of proud, and still date, you know, like very proud man. And my mother's the opposite. You know, my mother's very, you know, I mean, I wouldn't call anxiety the opposite of pride, but, you know, she is, if I am two things, let's say if I'm three things, if I can distill my core personality into three things, which I really shouldn't, but what I constantly believe myself to be, which is that I am, you know, I tried very hard to run away from turning into my parents, and I have precisely those, you know, determinative, you know, kind of qualities about them, which is one, as I have my father's pride, which is I I think I am the best. I think I deserve so much better. I think I've worked really hard and I have this chip on my shoulder and blah, blah, blah. And I'm also like my mother, which is I have tremendous anxiety about a few things. And I am sometimes I feel I'm trash. I don't deserve anything. And the third quality is the one that I've added to my line, if you will, which is the ability to apologize for the both of those two things about myself.
That's the maturity right there, I guess.
That's the self-awareness of our generation, I think.
Well, actually, that's true. There is a self-awareness that is maybe lacking in, can be lacking in the previous generation. I mean, I'm here in lockdown, and my mom is with me. She normally stays in Calcutta, and so I've been trying to like change her media habits and stuff like that because there is a lot of.
To what varying degrees of success have you achieved or not?
I've been relatively successful. I mean, once I because when we lived in Canada, she used to watch she's always been interested in social issues. I mean, she's a philanthropist at the end of the day.
Right.
But the brainwashing that has occurred in the media over here over the last several years, and it's been ongoing for more than the last 5 years. But it's been a pretty gradual process, and so even very intelligent people. And I mean, the propaganda is very it's very demographic specific. Like they have the propaganda tailored for whatever demographic you're in society. And so like someone my mom's age as well, she's not going to be immune to it. And so watching her sort of become brainwashed by all that stuff, just gradually has been really troubling, and then sort of reached ahead sort of last year around when the election was going on. I was watching her share things on social media that were just like clearly ludicrous, but also clearly contradictory to things that she had raised me on, the things she had. So I was like, wow, like what's going on, and how do I even explain this to mom? Because it has so much, there's the manipulation angle, but it's also like, how do you explain to someone who's like 78, 79 about algorithms and big data and that kind of stuff? So it took a while. I started last year. I started kind of soft, taking a cue from the very people that I was trying to move her away from.
Right.
So I just showed her things that were orthogonally related to the direct brainwashing that's taking place at the moment. And so I showed her a few documentaries about Cambridge Analytica and about sort of big data, Facebook algorithms, that stuff. Look, this is what's going on. Then I showed her a few other documentaries about, from things that she used to respect back when she used to follow news. And I was raised on my parents always watching, staying abreast of things going on in the world. So then I showed her a few sort of pieces from the BBC about what's going on in China with the surveillance things and maybe types of things that I don't really want to mention by name. But I showed her a few clips from other countries of just how things are taking place. And then slowly, as the sort of events of that occurred towards the end of last year, she slowly started to flip. And I think also there's some new friends that she has in her building that also they're close to her age, but they have avoided the brainwashing, and they were kind of from their end doing their part, unbeknownst to me. So that was good to know.
Right.
Now that she's been here with me for a better part of a month, I guess, over a month, I've been I bought her a new iPad. I've been showing her
Dude, awesome.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
I've been showing her the news source. It's really amazing. I'm gonna try my best to not name certain people and certain organizations, but there is a certain news anchor that I happen to share a name with that is just totally bananas. And it's really, I mean, she didn't used to watch him too much. She used to watch him a lot when she first moved here, specifically because he has the same name as me. And he was also not as crazy 10 years ago. Was kind of like a gradual build to like where, you know.
Yeah.
So
he's reached like a maniacal kind of level now.
Yeah. And so anyway, so there's that, and I want to try to not speak too much about that. But there is this, like, in terms of like primetime television news, there is this one news anchor whose name I can say, Ravish Kumar, who is like super respectable, super OG, super serious, does amazing reporting. And and this is, I mean, there has been like a campaign to sort of diminish his reputation and the reputation of the sort of organization that he's with, right? So it's really interesting to watch the change in my mother, who has become, over all these years, has become accustomed to watching the sort of gong show that is the nightly news in almost all these other channels. And then all of a sudden, like, we've just been watching like Ravish Kumar every day on YouTube. Like,
so good.
And it's amazing because it's like, all of a sudden I'm seeing the person that she used to be. Like, there's this like
that's so awesome.
You know, and we talk about this pretty regularly. It's like this, imagine the shock, you know, if for 5+ years, I mean, she's been living here for 12 years, but however many years this brainwashing has been going on.
Yeah.
She imagine just only watching that, and especially being elderly, and only watching that, and then finally, after all those years, seeing like real, actual reporting. It you know, especially for someone who's intelligent that used to watch real reporting. It's like it's mind blowing. She's just like, oh my goodness, like what have I been?
Yeah.
What's, you know? And she doesn't fully like want to admit it openly. Like, she hints at the fact that, like, wow, like what have I been watching? You know, like what's you know, I didn't know all this was going on.
That's so good to hear, man. Shit, that sounds amazing. Like I am facing a ton of issues with my own folks about like just, you know, the kind of things that they watch, and my parents are not the, you know, shining examples of, you know, liberalism that I would love them to be, or just like even a balanced kind of purview of what
balance is all you need, really. But in this environment, it's like the environment now is really, without getting into too much specifics, is actually just bonkers.
It is real. It's nothing but so I have tried to you know, like the few things that I did of late recently, when, you know, this whole kind of you know, COVID crisis began, was I tried to make like two groups. My parents are separated. So I have to kind of have two separate kind of video calls, and, you know, two, you know, separate groups with both my brother and I, and each parent. So to see the kind of difference in the two of them. My dad is a very like pragmatic person. So if, like, for example, like if business is not working out, and you know, if it comes down to like, you know, real numbers and figures, and something that is inhibiting his business because of something publicly done, like or state, you know, controlled or whatever, then he knows that, oh yeah, cool, this sucks because this guy is just, you know, the government or blah 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 is full of it, because I can't, it's inhibiting my work, and it's inhibiting work of people that are like me. And so for him, his facts kind of come from real life experience, or you know, and or how is he kind of interpreting the world on a very like one-to-one basis.
Basically how it affects his bottom line.
Yeah, his bottom line, and just generally, like, you know, like how is he being, like any like person would be, right? Like, how is this, why should I vote for somebody, how is it going to affect me? So it's kind of like he's watching that from a very personal kind of view, which is interesting. It's not right or wrong, I'd say. You know,
it's an understandable way of looking at it.
It's a very practical, like, okay, cool, he's not helping, you know, this is not helping my business, blah blah blah. My mother, on the other hand, has, you know, gone through a million jobs over a million years, and, you know, and she lives alone in Pune, so she is very influenced by, you know, the media and stuff like that, you know, over the years. And as I mentioned, you know, she's got a lot of anxiety, and because of that, a lot of paranoia, and, you know, her paranoia kind of what I thought, when this whole crisis began, I was like, yo, your moment to shine is here now. Like, it's a good time to be paranoid. Wash your hands a million times.
This is your moment. Go for it.
Yeah. But, it's slowly kind of devolved into like now, things like, oh, this virus is a biochemical weapon that has come from China, shit like that. And I'm just like, so it kind of, so it's kind of gone the inverse way that I did not expect. I mean, well, I should have been a little wiser towards. But anyway, the point is, my parents have, and I'm a fucking artist, man. Like, so it's, I know where I stand in terms of like, I gotta do it. This is who I am and what I believe in, and so for me to have, or any artist, I suppose, to have Indian parents or basically parents who are immigrants, at least at the time. You know how their worldview is in a specific way, and how they kind of interpret the news and things like that. So it's hard for me to kind of expect anything super amazingly equalitative, or at least for everybody out there, because they've just been always trying to find their own and hold their own for like for so long that that's the only way they know how to live. And I have this theory about like Indian parents generally, that that a lot of them are emotionally stunted, right? Like, because the previous generations, right?
Oh yeah, there's been many a think piece, or at least one that's been written about it actually.
Because they were just not taught to have that caring kind of like, for them, like caring and love and showing love is putting food on the table, and you know how it is, right? Like, that's what immigrant parents, or just parents of that era,
it's a generation. It's like there's a generational aspect. There's like an immigrant aspect, and it also depending on where you've immigrated from.
Of course, I don't want to blanket it, but there is such a commonality to it that it certainly goes beyond the Indian parent. There are certainly like immigrant parents from other places that have that same like the love is expressed by the fact that food is on the table. Yes, and that for them, that I don't disagree. I mean, like they worked really hard at jobs that they did not love at all. We've spoken about this before, but like this whole idea that this previous generation worked so hard, and they tried to put food on the table and make their kids, or make a life for their kids where their kids can do whatever they want, or like a better future, right? And then the interesting thing is that obviously it took maybe it's taking more than just a generation or maybe a generation or two to kind of reach that point where parents were working really hard to allow their kids to choose whatever they wanted to do, and to give them a higher paying job or whatever it is. And then our generation, which is super self-aware and very nihilist in some ways, looking at the future, saying, oh, you guys messed it up, and we have to deal with it, and we all chose saying, oh yeah, cool, what, I'm going to live a passion-based or interest-based lifestyle, and I'm going to choose that thing which I really want to do. And the interesting kind of discrepancy between what we grew up with, that idea saying, oh, you guys, you don't care about, you don't love me, you don't show this kind of affection that we want, but they also allowed us to do whatever we want, and then we chose the career or the path that we wanted to, and then we're still not like happy. It's like that weird, it's like, oh man, I did exactly what I wanted to be an architect, I wanted to be a musician, I wanted to do this kind of thing, I want to make games, I'm still not happy. Why? And that kind of rounds off this perfect kind of circle of events, at least in my mind. I have many thoughts on that. I mean, I think that narrative of like follow your passions, that's also a ridiculous narrative. And again, it's different. It's different in the West. I had to learn it the hard way, though.
Yeah, it's different in the West as well, because like we have Indian parents I have Indian parents when I'm growing up abroad, but you're still exposed to the ambient culture in the West of like, follow your dreams, and like if you do what you love for a living, then you don't work a day, and that kind of bullshit. And that the bottom sort of fell out of that in when the economic crisis happened, and certainly we see that there's in the West we were told we were sold this idea of like follow your dreams and anything is possible. And specifically because the generation before that, they sort of experienced something that was like, you know, work hard and you can kind of like get ahead in life. And because of the economic conditions, they ended up doing a little bit better than expected. And so people just kind of assumed that that trend would continue. And then, you know, fast forward and you have this generation, it's like the first generation in North America that's like worse off financially than the previous one.
Yeah, and we've had like 4 recessions, right? Since,
and now we got
the millennium.
Like, Lord knows what's going to happen after this COVID situation. Like, you know, so that changes the mentality. And I mean, even like, you know, I fall into the upper limit of what's considered a millennial. Like I'm right on that borderline between Gen
you're
X.
a cusp.
Right. You know, so there's also a difference between people who were born a little bit earlier and a little bit later. Because like that financial crash happened just a few years after I came out of university. And, you know, presumably like if I had done my master's or something like right after I finished my undergraduate degree, you know, and got into like some job. Like there's a bunch of friends I have that are like right in my age cohort that like followed those rules and like managed to like slide into a job just before that happened that allowed them to grow, and they, you know, they're still, you know, but because I took time to travel and, you know, dilly dally and do whatever. You know, that financial crash happened the year that I moved to Toronto. And so like immediately, like my ability to find like a normal, like a day job that I could just do while pursuing the arts, that was just decimated. And in a lot of ways, it pushed me on the trajectory that I'm on now. So I'm happy with what happened, or I don't have regrets or anything. But like living through that crisis has had a profound effect on our generation, and I'm sure living through whatever the aftermath of this malarkey is going to be.
Gosh.
Yeah. And so that
it will be the defining moment, I feel, in some ways for I mean, for anybody who's, I mean, what Gen Z probably and the millennials as well.
Yeah, because now we got the Gen Z to think about as well. They're going to be they're going to. This will definitely define how
they're going to mature at some point and into into a real person. Yes,
it's going to affect how they view the world as well, and that's going to be so different than the whole like follow your dreams, do the, you know, that narrative is also being dismantled.
That thing is that is it's done.
I don't know if it's done. Like there's adjustments, right? Like I have benefited a lot. Like I've suffered a lot for following my passions and doing what I love, but I've also benefited from that. Like it's not so much like don't do what you love. It's more like you just have to make a lot of amendments to that. Like you should do what you love. Like if there's something you care about, you're passionate about, obviously you should pursue that. Now, that doesn't mean that has to be your job, or it could be.
Yes,
but
I agree.
Also, like, there's the other part where it's like you want to do something you love and that you're passionate about. That means you're going to have to show up and work really hard. It means you're going to have to sacrifice a bunch of things. It means that you're going to have to, you're going to have to give up a lot of comforts. That was a part of the story we didn't get told. It was just like, you know, follow your dreams and like check it out. You're going to do, and it's like, no, you have to sacrifice. You have to work hard. And even, and another important thing is like, even if you do what you're passionate about or what you love, that doesn't mean that you're going to love it every day. It still means that you're going to have to show up to work on some days, and you're going to have to do a bunch of boring shit or some tedious shit. If you're an artist, then there's going to be some days when you're uninspired and you still have to show up. Well, it's going to be
most days that you're uninspired, or, you know, I'd say the majority of it. Like, people don't understand the kind of the level of compromise that you have to make in order to pursue something that you, in theory, love, but you can easily hate, you know, on a dime.
Yep. On a day-to-day basis, it's brutal.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. and I think you know, it's just interesting. I you know, because I'm a musician and now I've just, you know, I turned 30 last year, and you know, I don't know, for some reason I have emerged in the, you know, independent scene here as some kind of like advice giver role. I don't know how that happened, but I think it's just because
you're very smart and insightful and you're a good talker.
No, I think it's because I had a first mover's advantage, and I started doing this, back when there were like 4 songwriters here in Bombay. Well, in India, I could count all the singer-songwriters, right? Because back then it was still like about, bands and rock music, and now there's so many singer-songwriters, and I hope, in some way I have, and I, I have some, well, I want to give myself some credit for that, but anyway,
you deserve credit for it, and if you're not eager to give yourself credit for it, then certainly I will, and many of us.
Thank you, I appreciate it, and anyway, the point is that how I've because of that, a lot of young people, and I say young people, not to say that I am old in any way, but like I'd say 18, 19-year-olds. Who I can call young, and they all want to be singer-songwriters, and they always kind of ask, and they often will come up with something with a crazy career path, saying, I want to leave. I remember this one call, like the most out of everything, where this one kid from Orissa called me, because I very freely put my number out in public. I don't know why, but so people kind of call and stuff, and sometimes when they call and they say, I want to talk to you, and I'm just like, well, you had the guts to kind of pick up a number from the internet and cold call me, so all right, let's have this conversation.
Yeah,
and
totally
and so
fair.
I spoke to this kid. And he was like all of 17 or 18 years old, and he's like, I'm from Orissa, I want to be a musician, I want to just come to Bombay and play. I was like, dude, what happened? And he's just like, no, man, my dad wants me to become a CA and blah, blah, blah. I was like, and what do you want? He's like, I'm just going to come to Bombay and live there and make music. And I was like, okay, who's gonna pay your rent?
Bombay is expensive as fuck.
Yeah, it's the most expensive city here.
Easily, and by a long shot too. Like if you compare it to Delhi.
Oh my gosh,
it's
man. I've been to my friends' houses in Delhi, and I was just like, man, I would be like killing it.
One small Delhi apartment is like 5 like medium-sized Bombay apartments.
Pretty much.
Everything in Delhi is huge. It's the size differential in the homes between Bombay and Delhi is like a comical thing. Yeah, like,
it is comical
because Bombay is on the other extreme end of it. Like the homes in Bombay are so small. Like even like nice homes in Bombay are like comically small. And on the other hand, like you go to Delhi and it's like people's bathrooms are bigger than your like it's like half the size of exactly. It's really it's very
That's true.
Weird.
That's actually true though.
Oh man, when I've gone to visit friends in Delhi, I stay at their place and I'll just be in the bathroom and be like, this bathroom is the size of my apartment. Yeah, this is ridiculous. Like, what are you doing with this space? And everything in Delhi is so huge. Like even the monuments. Like if you just show up as a tourist in Delhi. Like all the monuments are massive and just like, hey, look, oh, I'm right here. Come check me out. Like, you know what I mean? But if you're a tourist in Bombay, it's like not immediately obvious what you want to see because everything is like hidden in some corner. And
that is true. Like a lot of people come to Bombay and they're just like, okay, what's to see? And I'm like, nah, there's some hidden gems, but you're good. You just hang out.
You got to, Bombay is definitely a city where you got to experience the lifestyle,
the people, and
the people, But I mean, that was a tangent. What were we talking about immediately before that?
Yeah, no. So so I was like telling this kid, I was just like, who's gonna pay your rent, man? He's like, I don't know. I was like, what are you gonna do for a job? He's like, I don't know. I was like, dude, you know what your best bet is? You should become a CA. You should take that job. You should take that job.
It's
make
hard
it realistic. Yeah, make it realistic, man. Like, I mean, even I worked like a bunch of jobs before. Before deciding to kind of just quit it and I was not even, I think back about the time or not like that I fucking quit my job and I was just like, I think about it now, I was like, yo, that was a poor decision at that point. I shouldn't have done. I was not fiscally ready at all to do it, and not to say that
same here,
I'm any better off. I mean, I'm relatively a lot better off right now, but but not so much that anybody looking at my like papers or my statements would be like, you probably shouldn't be a freelance.
We're all hanging on for dear life. But I mean, I'm very much the same way. I mean, like what happened with me in terms of jobs was quite funny because like it was sort of like a U-shaped curve, an inverted U-shaped curve. I started off working at Tim Hortons when I was, like 20.
Nice.
And then I moved up to working at like in retail at a record store. And then when I lived in Scotland, I got like my first office jobs. And then I was like, cool, I have like office admin experience. So like this is like a sensible day job. So then when I came to Toronto, I got a job at like a health insurance company, admin type service, customer service admin job at a American health insurance company. That's just a crazy story for a different podcast. And then after I quit that job, going back to this whole idea of the financial crisis, I quit that job under the impression that it would be pretty easy to find a slightly better admin job. Like I had stuck around in that job because like it was a temp job, and I had this expectation that eventually they were going to lay me off because they were laying everybody else off. And I was like, man, they're going to lay me off, and then I'm going to get some unemployment benefits for a few months, and then I can make music in that time, and great. And those bastards wanted to promote me, and I was like, listen. Like, because I was friends with the guy who was working above me, and I was like, I know that guy's job is bananas. Like, listen, I can't do that. So I quit that job under the assumption that I would be able to find a slightly better admin job. And because of the financial crisis, the economic crisis, however you want to call it, it was just totally impossible to find an office job. And so that's the thing that pushed me towards making music seriously, because I would get up every day and I would like go on Craigslist and send out resumes and write these horrible cover letters. Each cover letter was the same, basically the same. And they say like, you should write a unique specific cover letter for every company. But when you're applying for like admin jobs, obviously it's the same stupid cover letter where you're saying, it's like, I'm good. I can take a leadership role.
How many times are you gonna paraphrase the same thing?
Yeah. It's like, well, it's not even but obviously it's like a cutting and pasting and writing the same thing. But it's even the like letter within itself is stupid. It's like, because you're saying stuff that it's just jargony bullshit. Like, I can take initiative and I'm a strong leader, but I'm also can work as a team. And it's like, fuck, man, like it's the dumbest shit ever. And you're just, and every entry level job at that time was like, you need to have at least 5 years experience. And it was like, wow, what do you even mean? So I was doing this for months, just like sending out resumes and not even getting a call back, let alone an interview, because the scenario was so bad at the time. And so then, like parallel to that, like, I'm sending out resumes every day, but then also like people are coming over to my house and we're like recording songs, and like, we're making so many songs, like every day. Like people are coming over, a specific set of friends were coming, and so it got to a point where I just like gave up on sending out CVs and sending out resumes, and I was just recording music, and it was like, this is what I do all day, like, and that's when I had this is 2010. I had to start with the whole fake it till you make it, like you go out into like a public, a social situation, like what do you do? And you sheepishly tell people that you are a music producer, but it's the truth. Like that's what I do every day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like what I do every day. And so, you're doing it. And then eventually I was getting to the point where it's like, we can have enough music to make an album, and I need to pay to get it mastered. So I ended up getting a temp job finally, like months later. It was like a week-long temp job at an outbound, like small marketing firm. An outbound call, like it was an outbound call job at a small marketing firm. There was like the one other guy in the office with me, and he was a really nice guy. It was an interesting company, but I had to make outbound calls to like CFOs of random companies. It was the stupidest shit. And one day on my lunch break, I was standing in line at Starbucks. And I was thinking to myself, like, as a joke almost, like, I would just rather work at Starbucks. And then I was like, wait a minute, I would actually just rather work at Starbucks. And so I had a friend who was working at Starbucks. I was like, hey, can you get me a job? And so I started working at Starbucks. So, I mean, this maybe is a boring story, but like the U-shaped curve in terms of starting off at Tim Hortons and then working not working my way up, but eventually getting to like office admin jobs, and then finally like going back to like Starbucks. And that's the last normal job I've ever had, like normal was Starbucks. That's crazy. And I was there for about a year and a half, and it was much better than the health insurance company. Like, and the funny thing about Starbucks, in relation to the health insurance company was at the health insurance company, people would call up and just flaming mad about life and death situations. And the company was obviously like totally, the American healthcare system is totally bananas. So people were calling up with scenarios that were just so weird for a Canadian to listen to, you know?
Exactly.
And
yeah.
Then I'm working at Starbucks, and if you have a customer that's upset at you at Starbucks, worst case scenario, you just make them a new coffee and it's fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Like it was just
there's an immediacy to
it was just so easy to handle any type of situation in relation to the to working at this insurance company, because yeah, it's like, okay, I screwed up your coffee here. Here's another one, you know. And I really did enjoy talking to the customers while I like made the drinks. I started to enjoy like the art of to the extent that it can be considered an art at Starbucks, making the various sort of espresso beverages. Try that was gratifying.
That's a skill, man.
Yeah. And then speaking to the regular customers, that was great. And so. It was a weird kind of journey, and I had to do all of that before I quit that job finally to just do music full time. And then those beginning years of doing music full time, I mean, it's still hard, but in those beginning years, I still hadn't put out a full length album. I was like getting close to finishing one. Man, it was such a struggle. Like it was. I
get it.
Yeah, I mean, of course you get it. You've been through it.
Yeah, I remember when I finally quit my job, I had the same kind of experience trying to explain. Like, I remember I actually love, there's a whole like thing about, how the introverts are, dictating the internet right now. Yeah. But I like going out. I actually miss it a lot right now, and I love meeting my friends, and I love going out to clubs and and going for parties or whatever it is, except when it's like after my own show. I hate that. Then I just want to go home. Yeah. So I kind of miss that now. But I remember after I quit my job, I would still be doing the same things. I would go out or go out with my ex colleagues and stuff like that, and we'd be at all these kind of social gatherings, and people would ask me inevitably like, hey, so what do you do? And I would immediately go to like, oh, I'm a direct. And then I would stop because I was like, oh, I guess I'm not directing shit anymore. But I would then go like, I'm a musician?
Yeah. I remember that phase of getting out the word musician or producer, and you just like, it felt so weird.
Solid imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah, 100%. And there was a time, there was a period of time where I would just like awkwardly say that I'm a producer, and producer sounds even more ridiculous. Like, okay, yeah. And so then there was that, and then there was a time when I would just tell people that I was unemployed, because like that felt less embarrassing than telling people I was a producer.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it felt less embarrassing. And now, I can say it with a good degree of confidence, right? Like I actually have a repertoire or a catalog or a portfolio.
Yeah, you're legit.
Yeah. So now I feel totally confident saying that, but. It took so long, right? Like it took such a long time. It was such a hard slog. There was so much humiliation. I had friends that would treat me differently, right? Like I had people that I thought were my friends, and then
it's so true.
They had like a collection of friends that actually started treating like they're moving along in their normal career path, life, marriage, whatever it is, and. And then that has the effect of making me a little bit more uncouth. Like my behavior is only getting more and more eccentric because I don't have to show up to like this normal type of job scenario.
And, so true.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
So like it's like one thing just feeds the other. Like your friends certain friends. I shouldn't say I had some very good friends that were also very supportive of me during that time. But you have some friends that treat you like weird and almost like you're not growing up, and like look at you. Why didn't you bring a bottle of wine to the dinner party types? But then that. The way that they're treating you causes you to also behave and think of yourself that way. And so that's kind of when you start saying, yeah, like I'm unemployed. And that's when you start thinking of yourself as a mess. Like, well, that's what happened to me. Like I started thinking of myself as a total mess. And maybe I was, right?
Yeah. I don't know how I felt. I can't recall exactly. I think it's because while I still had a job, And I was really good at my job, and I could have, even I feel like I could have had a future in advertising as well.
Oh, definitely.
And doing
that shows.
It, like,
I mean, that shows even in your work, right? Like aside from your music stuff, it shows in just the brand of
thank you.
that is GeekFruit and all that stuff, right? So
I feel like maybe I just took those skills and just put it in a place which I really actually wanted to from the very beginning.
Yeah.
But I think the interesting thing is that because technically in many words in many ways we are freelancers, and we do the work that is required of us that is in our skill set. So it doesn't have to be a musical thing. It can be a voiceover. I know both of us are voiceover artists. So it's like, okay, today I'm a voiceover artist. And it's so project to project that when people ask you, when you're not currently working on something, yes, technically I am unemployed right now.
Not like, doing anything today. So like
I could say, right now I have a project going on, so it's chill. But like if you ask me maybe a week ago, I'm like, I'm totally fucking unemployed.
Yeah.
I mean, without counting the fact that I have an album coming out, but it's like, where do you kind of pitch, or where do you draw a line for it, and then things like that. But I definitely remember after I quit my job, kind of just I definitely wanted to get another job. I quit my job thinking I was going to get another job, and then like 4 weeks later, and 4.5 seasons of The Walking Dead later on, I was just like, I don't think I'm ever going to get a job. And I remember very distinctly also making the decision that if I do music 24 hours a day, 24/7 or whatever, I'm going to fucking shoot myself, because even I don't love music that much, and I feel
you need to have
strongly.
an alternative outlet. It's vital. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's also because, I don't know if this is weird. Tell me if this is weird, and this may also
yes, it
just
is
be
weird.
my own
Without
ego.
hearing what you're going to say, I'm sure it's weird.
But, when I hang out with musicians, okay, and when I say musicians, I mean people like you, Mally, Rohan, JJ, all the people in our like little, fraternity of
the usual
musicians
susps.
The susps, yeah. And who do music full time, right? And this is, and I always feel like when I'm hanging out, sometimes in a group, not one-to-one, right? But in a group, when I'm hanging out or we're at a gig and I meet all these people, and then people invariably it'll start talking about music and stuff like that. And I don't know what it is. Sometimes I just feel like, wow, I am definitely not a musician, or I definitely do not love music as much as these people love music.
Well, that's not weird. That's not weird. I've developed some protocols for this exact problem, and I think these are all people that we know and love. So I'm not going to say that they're weird, and I'm going to speculate that they also feel the same way as you do. Actually, sometimes we like it's hard to not talk shop. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's not even like about a skill set. It's not even like I don't feel like I have the necessary skills as much as X, Y, or Z have that, make me feel inferior, and so I'm not a musician. It's not even that. Like, I know I finally have the confidence to go like, okay, cool, you may be able to shred, you may be able to produce better than me, you can do something else, you can sing better, you can do all of these things, but nobody has my songs, so I'm fine, right? Like, I finally have that, I'm very comfortable in that idea now, because that's the only thing that allows me to continue being a musician. Otherwise, I'll just have to keep re-justifying it to myself every day. But I don't want to do that anymore, right? So I'm certainly tired of it. Yeah.
For me, as a multi, well, I used to call myself a multi-instrumentalist, and even like as a producer, I've worked on like a bunch of different genres. And as you continue along this line, and you actually do get successful, and I would consider the both of us successful at this point.
Yes.
What happens is that you just invariably, like the ego has to diminish at some point, because you invariably will just meet people that do things better than you, right? Yes. Like the only reason that I'm any good is because of the sum of all the things that I can do. But if I pick any one thing that I do, then it's just there's somebody that there's enough better guitar players than me. There's enough better hip-hop producers than me, there's enough better bass players than me, there's enough better drummers, you know what I mean? But it's just like the thing that makes me work, and the thing that makes me a valuable person, is the fact that I can do a bunch of those things and combine them in a unique way.
It's the encapsulation of it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's so fun. I've actually written a song about this to kind of justify my entire ideas about it, right? And my idea that this idea, I should say, that is ever present, that you will never be the best at anything that you do. Right? You will never be, so you will never be the best at it. So you can kind of keep that in mind and just continue onwards. But the antithesis, obviously, to this idea that, whenever I hang out with musicians and I don't feel like I belong. And when I say I don't feel I belong, I don't mean it in a way that, I am unique. I genuinely don't feel like a fucking musician.
Yeah, well, I don't feel like, well, you hang out at ICS for one day.
Oh my gosh.
I feel, like you
definitely don't feel like that, right?
And you talk to any of these other producers as well. It's just like, wow, like so much, you've done so, like that's always ongoing, and I feel like I've just finally kind of overcome that. Like that doesn't make me feel too awkward anymore. And I mean, also that idea of like you're never going to be the best at anything. It's like one of those. It's in that category of revelation that it's at first it's like a tough pill to swallow, but then when you do swallow it, it's actually extremely liberating, because you're like,
very liberating.
There's like
you're
an
free.
infinite. You're free, number one, and number two, there's like this infinite frontier of new things that you can learn and do.
Absolutely.
Right. So like that's the upshot of that. In terms of just like always talking about music and all, like being in situations where that can get a little tiring, awkward, taxing, whatever. That I find it really helpful to just have other outlets at a personal level, but also with my friends. Like, I don't know if I certainly haven't taken you on one of my art gallery crawls in South Bombay.
No, but I do some myself. I do my own. Yeah, I spend a lot of time.
Yeah, and I always try and take a different friend of mine to say, like, look, man, like let's go explore the art galleries. And another great thing is, like, if you're a musician and then you find a different medium that you can talk about, like if you and I talk about movies or talk about visual art or anything, whether it's engineering, science, whatever, that is such a release and
100%.
And a relief. And it also means that there's depth in our connection beyond the fact that we're just both into music, right?
Yeah, and also I don't feel like anything has influenced my own music more than like movies have. Like music has influenced my music, but not as much as like other things, other art forms have, for sure.
That's another really important point. You got to have things to pull from. If it's only music and that's the only thing you know about, then what are you pulling from to like write and compose anything? And that goes for whatever art form it is that you're engaged in. It's like, how can you not have other interests outside of this thing that you do? Like, it's almost like a requirement in order to be creative, right?
Yeah, I think that was exactly what I was trying to kind of define myself as, even after I quit my job and I said, okay, cool, I'm a musician. And when I started GeekFruit, it was because I knew that I was gonna want to do something else that I wanted to really focus on. And I was like, okay, cool, what are the things I really like? And I tried to like, distill, at least one thing that I could do consistently that I love and that I thought I was good at. And I often say this about GeekFruit. It's like, it's a job that I didn't know I was training for like my entire life, right? Like I didn't know I was going to get, and I didn't know I was going to have.
It's a great feeling, hey, that job you didn't know you were training for your whole life. I mean, that feeling is such a good feeling when it sinks in. Like, I had that feeling the first rock album I produced. Yeah. When I was doing it, I was just like, wow, like I've just been training for this forever. It wasn't the same in the sense that like I knew that I always wanted to be a producer, like pretty much since the 10th or the 11th grade. But it took me so long in terms of years to get to the point where somebody actually let me produce like a rock band, the band let me produce their album. And so, yeah, like I'd been mentally preparing to do this for so many years.
I completely.
And then finally, when you get to do it, it's just like it's like butter. Like, and obviously, like that.
Yeah,
like,
it's such a no-brainer.
Yeah. I've obviously learned so much since then. But that feeling, it's like, it's as we say in Newfoundland, it's like a hot knife through butter.
Nice.
It's amazing, and it's the exact opposite of that soul-crushing job that you do just to get by.
I think also for me, it's like the funny thing was that, I know, like I stumbled into music by accident. I never, like, I didn't grow up thinking I was going to be a musician. I grew up thinking I was going to be an architect, and I grew up thinking I was going to do something, creative. And then my whole family life kind of like was so all consuming that I didn't really get time to think about what I wanted to be as a but I knew that I was creative. I was often defined as that in school, and because of that it didn't seem too wrong that I ended up becoming a musician. But when I say that I stumble into it, I definitely feel like just to bring this whole point, of sitting in a group of musicians, I always feel like I don't know if I love music the most, out of a bunch of people that I know. Like I know for some people they love music and that's their core being and stuff. And for me, music is definitely a means to, for me to express, and it is a glorious feeling when I have accomplished something in music, and I do love it, to bits. But I do know I love like movies, and I love, so many things, and definitely movies for sure. Like I love that art form a lot as well. But, the funny thing is that when I hang out with musicians and I say, in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, man, I ain't a musician, like I don't feel like a musician sometimes. I feel like these guys are musicians. I am also dabbling in music. And then
you're like, at the end of the day, you're one of the most successful motherfuckers out of all of them.
Thank you, man. I feel like that. I want to, I'll attribute that to like a bunch of other things also. But I will say this, that, and this is the maybe the nail on the head of these things, right? But when I go and hang out with my friends from school and who are absolutely not musicians at all, like one of them is, but who's not steeped in the industry and the daily kind of grind of what we do. Mm-hmm. But when I go and I meet people and I hang out with friends who are not musicians at all, and we're just chatting amongst each other, and this is the things that come up, the politics, life, parents, all these things, and I fucking sit and I think to myself, man, I'm a fucking musician.
There is that.
I'm such a fucking musician.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
That.
Yeah, that I'm an artist. That's definitely what comes across in my mind a lot when I hang out with people who aren't.
The acceptance of being an artist, I mean, for me is fun, because I'm pretty reluctant to accept that label, because it sounds like such a crazy thing to to self-identify as, right? But now it's like it sort of just like thinking about the work that I've done. It's not something I can deny, right? Like I'm an artist by design. Not by choice. Like it just happened.
Yeah.
Like, look, what do you want? Like I just create stuff on a daily basis. I can't help it. I could have, I'd rather be doing something else, but this is what I can't help but doing. And, there's also this other aspect of like, okay, you can say I make music for a living. I kind of like to say that I make music as a result of the fact that I'm living.
Nice.
Like,
wow.
That's the best way for me to look at it, because, sometimes if I think about it too much from the point of view of I make music for a living, then I end up doing projects that are far less satisfying, like,
Yeah, understandable. I think people need to get that though. Like, at least younger people, like, and this is part of I have a cousin.
I'm officially getting to that age where I can start being old man that's yelling at a toaster or whatever it is.
Cloud. Yeah. So I have a cousin who's much older than I am, and she kind of essentially with her husband raised me when I came to India. I always have this kind of issue with my parents that they didn't really teach me anything. Like I can't tell you one thing I learned directly from my parents. Like I learned everything indirectly from their mistakes or the way they were. And I of course I learned, basic things, but like in terms of, like real life lessons, I feel like I gleaned the most from my cousins who actively try to make, most things teachable moments. And it's amazing. And I owe them everything, honestly. And I'm just as a favor, he runs this, the husband of my cousin, who's kind of like, I just group call them my cousins. And so he wants me to do this talk at his company next week, because they're trying to find ways to kind of inspire people and keep people motivated and do fun things with it. Yeah, I know, as in like just show people fun things that other options to life or whatever. I'm another option.
You gotta show up and just for the entire time that you're allotted, just make various balloon animals.
Other options in life, yes.
And this is a goose.
But the thing that I'm trying to explain to he's like, what do you want to talk about? What are you going to brand your talk as? And I was just like, let me just talk about how music is a career. And it's not, everybody has this idea about music being this, especially if you're a musician and you're creating albums, right? Like this is the primary function of what I do, essentially, at least what people see that I do on Instagram or, Facebook or whatever it is, on the internet. A lot of kids and everybody, who thinks about the music industry thinks that there is this one make it moment. It's like, oh, when are you going to make it? Or when are you going to have this one thing? And I
continuously in the process of making it.
Yeah, I can't explain how what a misconception that is on such a huge level about how that this is about. We keep saying, oh, non-traditional. It's only non-traditional because not many people have done it. More people did it. They'd realize how traditional a path it is in many ways, that you still have to do things like fucking sit at a desk and email people and call people and network and go and make, connections. And that's essentially... It's like everybody's job is that you think because you have a salaried job at a company that... It's the entire company is a freelance company. Like it's just like it's a bunch of people going out and looking for work, and just because they are assured that they're going to get that work, that's why you have a salary. That's why you have a stable job. But everything is the same. Everybody's looking for work, and that's what we do. In a very like a fundamental unit of that is just like making like work happen and pitching for work and getting jobs. And for me, it's like I have realized that I don't ever want to. I want to have some skin in the game in the sense that I always wanted to not make music the primary source of my income, like, which is that I didn't want to make music or my personal like albums for money. And I didn't want to do that. And then I realized, okay, cool, I've quit my job now. I kind of have to do it. And then a few years in, like maybe a couple of years ago, I decided that, okay, cool, I'm going to go back to relying on what makes me a good musician. You said, hey, Tejas, you're doing really well. And I feel like I'm doing well, not because I'm just a good musician, because I have, I can talk to people. I have confidence in when I speak or I pitch, and I want to use those skills to kind of make money now. Like those are the things that I'm going to rely on to kind of make money. So now when I'm a musician, what it really means is that I have a skill set in audio and, and speaking and singing
networking
and networking and production.
Yeah.
That's
and PR.
what I'm going to leverage. Yeah, that's what I'm going to really kind of use and like fall back on to kind of make money. And my music is a byproduct now of all of those things all the money that I make with these skills that allows me to make music. And now when I think about it, I still want to rely on music a little bit because of, I want to have skin in the game because it makes me more focused that way. So it's kind of right now I'm at a balance, but I do want to kind of, I still try and make it as known as possible whenever people talk to me about music or whatever it is that I do as a career. I try to make it clear.
You said two things that are related, and I'm curious if you have gotten around to reading anything by Nicholas Taleb.
Yeah, I know. So my friends are like the biggest Taleb fans. So I kind of I follow him on Twitter and whatever articles he writes and stuff. I read those. I've still not. I don't think I've had the courage to kind of dive into Skin in the Game.
His book Skin in the Game is probably his most accessible.
Yeah.
And it like
you have told me that.
Yeah. So you've mentioned having skin in the game several times in that last little mini rant, but also and, I mean that in the most affectionate way because I rant a lot myself. But you mentioned another concept that is something that I picked up from Taleb. I've read all of his books, but you were kind of saying that like you want to leverage your skill set and like the music is just a byproduct. I don't necessarily maybe that's not the main source of income. I want to get my income from sort of other skills I have, and then the music just happens. And Nicholas Taleb, Nassim Taleb, he says that if you're really passionate about something, if you're really passionate about a particular whatever it is, you should not have a day job in that thing. And what he means is that like if you want to be a writer, then you shouldn't like write copy for some like random advertising firm or whatever it is. Like if you want to be like a musician, like a composer, like an artist, then you shouldn't make dinky tunes and jingles for ads. And the reason is like that's going to drain your creative energy from the thing you're passionate about, and you're going to hate the thing. So if in my case, like I love producing albums like that are, you know, for good artists, not random foolish artists. I had to, you know, so I like making good
foolish
records.
Artists. Yeah.
Well, no, you know, you got it. I look, man. When I was starting out, I had to sit through some pretty horrendous recording sessions with some fairly ludicrous people.
Foolish
that
artists.
Want, you know,
I feel you.
Yeah,
man. I get
yeah.
it.
So, but I love making good records. I love making artful records, and even when I'm making my own stuff, it's like it's you know, I'm not necessarily trying to make the next sort of EDM banger with a drop or whatever it is. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so the only reason that I am able to have the brain space and to do these projects is because I don't generally make music for ads. Like, I have done it, and every now and then I'll do it, but it costs a lot of money to get me to make music for an ad, because like, if I spend all day, like, and you know, if you're working for those kind of clowns, like, they will, and I mean, I don't mean to accidentally throw shade, because I guess you used to be in advertising, but like, they'll be really demanding. They don't understand the amount of work that goes into it. They'll make some absurd sort of like, we need to have this done, you know, by this evening or by tomorrow morning or whatever it is.
Right.
And it's like, if you want me to spend all my day making some bullshit piece of music, you know, draining my creative energy, you're going to have to pay me a lot for that day's work, because at the end of that day, I'm not going to want to make my own music. And I had this experience.
Absolutely.
I had this experience when I ended up, you know, just for a day working at a Bollywood production house. And you've heard this story, you know, like they gave me some random weird sort of vocal to work on, like some random Punjabi vocal that was already tracked to some other instrumental, and they were like, basically, we want you to make a beat that sounds exactly like this other song by DJ Snake or whatever. And just try to not rip it off so much that we don't get sued or whatever it is. And I was happy to do it in the moment. Like, in the moment, I was like super grateful, like, oh wow, like I got work in my field, and you know, this could be a regular gig, and great.
Absolutely.
But then like when I got home, I just did not want to make my own music. I would have just rather done anything else. And like, I don't have any judgment against people that do that. You know, but the way that I kind of looked at it was, the guy that asked me to do this, the guy that runs this production house, like the main producer in charge, he's got like a wife, he's got 2 dogs, his parents live next door, he's got a family, he's got all these other things in his life that bring him meaning. And I'm like this only child, you know, in no fixed geographic location.
So true.
I like the main source of meaning in my life is doing these artistic projects that engage that part of my skill set. That's why it's like, I make music as a result of the fact that I'm living, not for a living, you know, like, it generates income for me when it does, but I get my main income from other sources, you know, because some of them are related to audio, some of them are not. Because if I spend all that time just pumping out music for ads or banal TV programs or horrendous movies, and I you know, I'd love to make film scores, you know, that are for good films, and you know,
same. I mean, I would love to do that as well.
Well, I've done one film score for a not such a great film, and that was fun. But if I'm going to waste my brain space and my creative energy on these projects, then like, what meaning do I have left, right? Like,
it's an interesting way to look at it. I mean, like, I know that both you and I still, I mean, we do make music, but we also use a lot of our skill sets to do audio work, right? Like, whether it's like doing some random, I know I still make like stupid jingles or podcast themes or you know, whatever it is. But it's not, I think there's a fine balance there. I don't think it has to be such a binary thing.
Oh, it's not 100% binary, and I should clarify. There are still times when I will do like an ad, like music for an ad. There are still times when I'll do these like one-off things, but the difference is that it costs a lot more now. Like in the beginning, I would do it
absolutely.
For
you gotta
much
make
cheaper.
it worth your while.
Yeah, it's like if you get like if I get like one of those a month, then that's fine, but it's going to be expensive. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because you know, it's I've been doing this for years. I'm pretty good at it.
Exactly, that's the thing, right? You've earned it, and I do see this thing a lot. At least when I was back in agency, and I would have to like look at CVs or whatever of people who are coming in, and I often see this at least for millennials, mostly for millennials. I don't know if it's still a continuing habit for Gen Z, but they quit jobs like so quickly if it's not satisfying them immediately. And I'm just like, yo, your job is not going to be good your first few years, man. It's a rite of passage that you have to fucking suffer, you know? Like, I don't mean that in the way that unless you are some kind of prodigy or you're a fucking, you're killing it, or you're the son of somebody or whatever it is. I think there's so much valuable learning in going through that first year or 2 or 3 or whatever it is of like doing everybody's job. I remember when I finished graduation, I graduated my master's program and I was like, I'm a writer, I was still on this writer shtick, and I was like, I'm gonna, and I still write, so whatever the thing is, like I was just like, I want to be a writer. And then I got this job, I got placed at The Glitch, which is where I worked for 3 years, and I went in there and I was just like, okay, cool. So what's the work like, and like, can I get some work? And they were like, cool. Quickly go edit this dumb thing for the internet. And I was like, oh, actually, I'm not an editor. I'm a writer. And they looked at me like,
you're an editor.
Okay, whatever. Just go edit this shit right now. And I was like, fuck. All right, I guess I'll do that. But I was just like, listen, man. I'm a writer. I had to go to the boss, and he was just like, yo, listen, you are whatever the fuck we say.
Well, you got to pay your dues one way or another, right?
Exactly.
Like, you have to go through that one way or another. Yeah,
I totally get it. So I do think, and a good story, a story that I love is that of this guy named Lorne Balfe. Mm-hmm. He's a music composer, and how I know is because I'm a nerd and I play video games, and I don't just play video games, I dig really deep into the video game. So I download the score, I read the novelization. So there's a famous game series called Assassin's Creed. There was a game called Assassin's Creed 3, which I loved, and obviously I got the score and I bought the score separately to listen to it because it was fantastic, and it was done by this composer Lorne Balfe, and I was like, oh cool, video game composer, and I followed him and I blah blah blah, and I've been tracking this guy's career. This guy may not have wanted to do video game scores, and maybe have done some terrible shit before, but then I saw his name on the back of Mission Impossible Fallout. He was like the music composer of that like a couple of years ago, and I was like, wow, man, I'm so happy for this guy, because I've literally followed this guy's career from the time he was like doing video games, which is not to say that that's nothing, but
you got to start somewhere.
He also did work on the first you got it. So you got to work your way to that. So if I'm going and like, oh, I want to do video, I want to score films or whatever it is, I really have to take on like dumber shit to kind of get there. So there is that balance where you have to do the grind, to get to that place. But
you either have to do the grind, or you have to have that other job that's like totally not related, so that you can be a bit more snobbier about everything, even while you're sort of developing your skills. There's like that balance is there, and I definitely would not want to give the impression that you don't have to pay your dues in one way or the other, right?
Or another, exactly.
It's like, absolutely. That's a fact. For me, what I was getting at was like, look, I don't have any other source of meaning, right? It's the type of thing that would be different even if I just had like a family. Like imagine if I just had like a wife and a kid, then it would be like, okay, like that's the meaning in my life, and I can make these jingles for a living because the meaning that I'm deriving is coming from a different source, like I
want to continue having that meaning, so I better do these jingles.
Exactly, right? Now I cannot establish that counterfactual because obviously I'm not married and I do not have a child, but that's the calculation for me. It's like this thing that I do is such a profound source of meaning for me, and it may not be that way forever, but it's something that I've had to do for myself. And for,
absolutely.
But got to work hard for sure. Man, we have talked about, like, I was not expecting, I thought we were going to just go through the history of GeekFruit and your backstory and everything, but we have talked about some interesting...
There's enough of that.
There is. Well, I had a good conversation with Jishnu about that, which is going to be on his episode.
Nice.
So this is like,
Oh, I'm so interested in hearing that.
it's a good convo. I enjoyed that one as well. This has been really interesting, and I'm just trying to like figure out, because there is certain things about your music and stuff that I want people to just know in terms of like social media contacts, like where can people find you? What's
I go by Tejas, even though my full name is Tejas Menon, but I just go by Tejas. It's like a one-word thing. So if you need to find my albums, or because there are several Tejases out there, as I've mentioned several times before, my greatest SEO enemy is the Tejas lightweight combat aircraft from the Indian Air Force. So finding me on YouTube might be a bit of a dig. But actually, if you just type Tejas and music or Tejas Make It Happen, that's the last album that I came out with in 2017. So you can type either of those together, those compound searches, and you should be able to find it on Spotify, YouTube, on Instagram. I'm Tejas Menon 1989. But yeah.
That's the important one these days, is the Instagram handle. So Tejas Menon 1989. That's a good jumping off point for finding all your other stuff, I guess.
Sure.
Right?
Yes. 100%. Yeah.
This was
thank you, Arnab.
Thank you.
My gosh.
This was a great jam session.
We literally live less than 100 meters away from each other.
Yeah, we're almost like shouting at each other from the opposite side of the road in a way. For those of you who are listening, he does actually live across the street. He moved into a building across the street. How long ago? Just a few months ago?
August of last year. Yeah.
August of 2019. More than a few. But yeah, in fact, I should say Tejas has been one of the biggest supporters of me since I've been here. He's helped me a lot, introduced me to a lot of people. And in fact, I'm using his
good reason, though.
I'm using his headphone converter as we speak to do this podcast.
Nice.
So
nice.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, man. I mean, it's your podcast, so I don't need to pimp you out. But Arnab, you are one of the finest minds I know, and I always enjoy speaking to you because there's always something valuable at the end of it. It's not. I mean, we can talk garbage if we wanted to, but I know that even if we wanted to, it always ends up becoming something really interesting that churns the mind, which is great. And I can't say that about many people in the city, honestly.
Wow. So I mean, that's a tremendous compliment. I guess later on when I'm editing the audio for this podcast, I'll find out the level of garbage that emanated from my mouth. Emanated?
No, you are.
That's some garbage right there.
No, you are definitely. And I'll just end it with this though. But I think I'm quite an idiot, and I try to learn as much as I can. And the best way to learn is to surround yourself by people who are smarter than you. And you definitely are on the top of that list.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
With a small list of people who I consider to be like amazing thinkers, and I need to learn a lot from. So you're definitely a role model for me, man.
The feeling is mutual, brother.
Thank you, dude.
Okay, listen. Have a good gig tonight. You're doing a live gig, so have a good one. And
I hope so. Yes.
May it be free of technical difficulties.
I hope so. I think it should be fine.
Okay. Godspeed.
All right. Thanks a lot.